Audio Jungle.
I just want to give some introduction about SAS. Okay, so SAS is nothing but statistical analysis software. So the abbreviation of SAS is nothing but statistical analysis system or a software. So, which is developed by SAS Institute in North Carolina University. It is in the United States in 1976. So they implemented SAS software in North Carolina University. So it was started as a project to analyze the agricultural data which is collected through. So what is the main purpose of SAS is nothing but is simply the name itself indicates. See here, statistical analysis system. So it means we are doing some analysis using this tool. So you can simply say SAS is nothing but it's a reporting tool. So we will do some analysis and we'll generate some reports. We'll do some analysis and we'll generate some reports. So what type of reports you generate and what type of data you are going to deal with. So I will explain each and every point. Yes. So in the early years 1970, so SAS is developed only for agricultural data analysis, but after 1970, so they have implemented some features, they have implemented some components to our SAS software. So now you can able to perform different types of tasks like data entry, data retrieval, data management, report writing, creating different charts, statistical, mathematical analysis, decision support, application development, etc., etc. So when SAS is developed, so it can be used only for analysis, data analysis. But after some years, for 1970, so they also implemented some advanced features to SAS software, so that you can easily perform different types of tasks like data entry. You can create some data tables, and you can retrieve the data from different kind of data sources. Like you can get the data from Notepad or Excel files, CSV files. Even you can also get the data from Oracle database, different type of database, not only Oracle. So it depends on company. So like Oracle database or DB2, Sybase, Informix, Teradata. So whatever database you're using, so you can easily. So that is why SAS we can also call that. It can be. So you can also call SAS is nothing but multi-data architecture. So multi-database architecture. So it means we can get the data from any kind of data source. So we can get data from different kind of data sources. That is different. The data management. So after getting the data into SAS application, if you want to perform some manipulation, like if you want to perform some transformations, if you want to do some edit, if you want to edit the data, so you can edit, so that you can get some meaningful data. So I will show you. No problem. I will show you with examples. So how you're going to get the data from data source, from different data sources into SAS, and what type of management, what type of transformation you perform here. So I will give you the examples, no problem. They have that report writing. So using SAS software, you can also generate some reports. So it's report writing and creating different types of charts. So if sometimes your client will ask you to generate some graphs. So he wants you to generate some reports in the form of graphs, not in the reporting files like a PDF, HTML, audio. So these are the reporting files. These are the different types of reporting format files. So sometimes we will expect the same report in these formats, graphs. But we have the future in SAS software, so you can also generate some graphs. And statistical mathematical analysis. So we are using SAS software only for data analysis. Remember that. So we are using SAS software for only data analysis. So statistical and mathematical analysis means they have they are predefined some statistical techniques. So using those techniques, you can perform some, you can generate some statistical reports. Okay, so now go to the next slide. Okay, and before that, so what is eligibility criteria for SAS? Who can learn SAS software? I can tell you one thing. The people who really interested to learn some statistics, who really want to do some data analysis, they can learn SA software. But after learning SAS software, so you can work in different industries like clinical industry or banking industry or finance or retail marketing or different industries. So because of these advanced statistical techniques, so they can generate some different types of reports using SAS software. So that is why nowadays SAS is being used by different industries, multiple industries, various industries like clinical industries, pharmaceutical companies, banking industry. Nowadays they're using SAS. So after learning this SAS software, suppose if you want to work in clinical side, so what is the eligibility criteria for that? Then if you want to work in banking sector, then what is the eligibility criteria for that? So for that I divided into two categories, that is license background and non-license background. So license background is nothing but where these people will come, like graduates in microbiology, biotech, pharmacy, BSc or MSc chemistry. So these people comes under license background because they know the terminology in clinical. They understand. They can easily understand the clinical data. The data is related to your life, like some drugs information. They can easily understand that. But so the main, due to the terminology problem, so I divided into two categories. So wherein these people, after learning this SAS software, so they can work in clinical research companies, some hospitals, pharmaceutical companies, some health, some insurance companies. So they are going to deal with some clinical trial data, especially in pharmaceutical companies. So again, I will tell you. So suppose if you are from clinical, suppose if you are from life science background. So what type of data you will get? So from where you will get the data? So I will tell you each and everything. No need to worry. Just understand the concept. So here I divide into two categories. One is life science and one is non-life science background. So whereas in life science background, so these people will come and down. And just coming to the non-life science background. So like people like BA, MBA, economics, Bachelor of Arts, BTech or MTech, MBA, MCA, BCom and MCom. So these people comes under non-license background. So after learning this SAS software, so they can work in banking sector or finance sector or insurance sector or retail marketing. So why can't we work in clinical side in clinical companies? Yes, that is true because you cannot work. I cannot say that you cannot work, but you can work. But when you be familiar with, if you know the terminology in clinical trial, if you're able to understand the clinical trial data, so you can easily work in clinical side also. But people don't aware of that. Don't aware of some terminology. So due to the terminology problems, they are not going to work in clinical trial. So if you are very good at clinical trial terminology, so you can easily work. You can easily work anywhere in clinical companies or banking companies. Let's talk about some clinical trial data, just what type of data will be there in the clinical trial. So what type of terminology will be there. So is it difficult to understand these people? Is it very difficult to understand these people, the clinical trial data? So I will give you some points. So in this clinical company especially, they are using SAS software to publish some clinical trial data in different types of reports. So in a banking companies, so it's the same way. So again, they are going to generate some banking data reports. Okay. So while they're generating any reports, while generating any banking reports, so it's very mandated to understand the data first. So it's very important to understand the data. So if you're not able to understand the data, then you are not going to give a decision for your client. So science is nothing but it's a power to know actually. So that is the slogan for SAS. It means, so using the SAS software, you definitely will generate some reports. So as per your reports, your client will take decision making. Your client will take decision. So if your reports are not having if your reports are not having quality or some other things, so it's not going to work. So first you need to understand the data. Once you understand the data, then you can go and generate some reports. So that is why it's very, very important to understand the data first. And when coming to this third category, BSS statistics and MSS statistics, so these people can go to any industry, in clinical or in banking. So why? Because so these people will generate some, will prepare some documents. So even they can also generate some reports using this as SAS programmer, but the initial thing is, so they generate some, they prepare some documents. So what are these documents which are developed by these people, which prepared by these people? See, as a clinical SAS, suppose now you are in clinical company, now you got some task today. So if you want to generate that report, you need to take some documents, you need to follow some documents. So those documents will be prepared by these people, BSc or MSc statistics. So that is why these people are required in industry. So wherever you are using SAS software, so these people will be there. Okay. So I'm going to the next slide. Okay. So suppose now I will put my discussion on this one. So life science background. So clinical companies, how they are using SAS software. So what is the purpose of using SAS software? So why this is required? So first I will tell you. So why they are using SAS software in clinical companies? So because in the market, so there are different types of reporting tools like SAP, Hadoop. So there are different types of Informatica is also there. So why especially you are using SAS software? So is it mandatory using SAS software in clinical companies? So I will tell you some points here. Okay. So most of the pharmaceutical companies, what they are doing nowadays, so they want to sell the drugs, they want to sell the new drugs in the market. So, or sometimes they want to introduce a new drug molecule into the market. So they cannot directly introduce the market. They cannot directly introduce the drug in the market because they have to get some approval from some authorities, like some government bodies are there, FDA, Food and Drug Administration. So they have to get approval from FDA, Food and Drug Administration. So how they will get approval from FDA? Because FDA won't give approval to all people who are conducting clinical trials, because there are some they're having some rules and regulations. Okay, so if you really want to sell your new drug, or if you want to introduce a new drug molecule into the market, so first just go and conduct some clinical trials. Then if your reports are having, if your reports with the safety, if your reports are having safety, then they will give you approval, otherwise no. So that is why people start conducting clinical trials, and then they record some of the information of the clinical trial data, and after that they will generate some reports and submit to the FDA. Then if FDA feels satisfied, then they will get the approval. Otherwise no. So they will get some registration or approval for the new drug, so just to be introduced into the market. So this is the main process actually. So now they want to do some, as of now, what I said, we are using SAS software for the data analysis. So what type of analysis you do in the clinical trials, in this process, in the clinical companies? So see here I will tell you some in the clinical trial process. So how we will get the data, from where you will get the data exactly. Okay, so where we are going to involve as a clinical SAS programmer. See here I will give you some introduction here. So this is the clinical trials in a nutshell. So what is the total process of clinical trials? So what is the use of conducting clinical trials? Again, the question is, because we want to introduce a new drug molecule into the market. So we want to introduce a new drug molecule into the market. So that is why FDA is asked to conduct the clinical trials. Clinical trials are nothing but testing of drugs and human beings. So there is nothing but clinical trial. But before testing of drug and human beings, you have to test it in laboratory using some animals. So if you feel satisfied with, if you feel okay with that animals, then you can go for clinical trials. So this is the clinical trial process. Now we are not going to take any animals here because this is the clinical trial process. This is not pre-clinical trial. So here I will take some patients here. I will recruit some patients and I will conduct the clinical trial. So before that, first I'll come from this. Okay, so this is the entire process. See, my process is starting with this document. First document, it's looking like my document here. That is protocol. Alright. So my protocol is required. So what is the protocol? Protocol is nothing but method of preparation. The principles, they principles. It means, I'll give a simple example. So if you want to construct a new building, so you have to get a plan from your engineer, right? So the same way, if you want to conduct a clinical trial process, then you have to get one up, then you have to follow some documents. So the document is none other than protocol. So first you have to prepare the protocol. Then in this protocol you just make sure that you have to give details of your study. So which study you are going to conduct and how many patients you need to take into the study and how many, what type of subjects you want, what type of patients you want to take into the study and what are the age groups required and what you want from the patient. So what should be the characteristics of the patient. So everything as mentioned in the protocol. And once you prepare the protocol, again you have to send it to some government like some review boards. Like there are two bodies are there. So one is IEC, Institutional Ethics Committee, and you have to get approval from these two organizations. Then once you get approval from this organization, then you can go for investigator selection. So in the investigator selection this is nothing but you have a protocol with you. Now, if you want to start a clinical trial, then who is going to conduct a clinical trial? So here, investigator is required. Investigator is nothing but doctor. So because doctor only, he knows that how to take care of patients. So we have to select investigator, but when we are selecting the investigator, we have to make sure that your investigator should be qualified in that particular study. You should you should have trained by education, and you should have some experience in particular study which study you are going to conduct. Just now I said, suppose if you take one study like diabetes or cancer, whatever study, so your investigator should be aware of that particular study, that particular disease, so that he can take care of the patients. So selection of investigator is also required here. Then once you select the investigator, then you have to go for again approval process. So once you get the approval process here, then you will start recruiting the patients here. So you will start to recruit patients. So how many patients you have to take? So everything will be mentioned in the protocol. So as per the protocol, you are going to select your patients into study. Once you recruit the patients, directly you are not going to allow them to study directly, because you have to test them again. So you have to screen them again. So again, the screening process. So some patients may get rejected, and some patients get accepted. So this acceptance will be depends on your totally depends on your protocol only, because in the protocol you clearly mention that so these requirements I want, these characteristics I want from the patient. So as per your protocol, you have to screen the patients. So if subject is not if he is not passed in your screening test, then he will be rejected from your study. So you have to screen them first. So the patients who qualified in screening test, so they are going to involve into the study. So before that, again they have to sign some documents like informed consent form. So they have to sign. So that is nothing but they are ready to go with some the drug test. and if the patient die, so this is their own risk actually. So no one is going to take the responsibility, because that's why they are some sign on the consent informed consent form. Okay, so once this process is completed, then they will capture the data from the patients. So in this stage, actually, there are different phases are there. So how now once subject enrolled into the study, so there are 4 phases are there: phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. So in the phase 1, we'll estimate the safety. So in the phase 2, we'll estimate the safety and efficacy. In third stage also we'll estimate the efficacy. And in the phase 4, so that is post-marketing drugs. So again, we have to do some minute tests on the particular drug. So these 4 phases information we have to capture into some data files. So see here in this file, in this picture, so you have to enter the data into some files like generally in this process here CDM department will enroll here. So CDM department will take care of this data entry process. So CDM people are clinical data management. So they will enter the data into some hard copies. Hard copies are the CRF form, case reporting forms. So they will capture the data into CRF form again. So from the clinical trial phases, CDM people will enter the data into CRF forms. CRF form is nothing but case reporting form. It's like a hard copy. So we have to capture the data. So what is the subject ID, what is his age, what is the gender of the patient. So everything we have to mention in this CRF form. So once you enter the data into CRF form, again you have to convert. This is CRF is nothing but it's a hard copy. So we have to convert this data from the hard copy into soft copy. Nothing but we have to convert into some electronic data. Nothing but some Excel files or some CSV files or Notepad, or you can say database. So once they enter data into CRF form, they should enter the data from the CRF to again some Excel file or some databases. So once they enter the database, all phase 4 information from phase 1 to phase 4. So they enter the data, all data into database. So when they enter all data into database, the database will get locked. So it get locked. So once the database is now it's locked actually. So from this database, here SAS programmer is required because he has to generate some reports. So how many patients are there, and during the study, is there any patient, how many of them getting side effects, okay? So what's the relationship of the side effects, like is it mild or moderate or severe? So to understand this data, so SAS programmer is required. So you will do some analysis on the clinical trial data, which is entered into the database.